They can't begin to comprehend what you are.
You didn't come here looking for answers. You came here looking for permission.
Jean.
The most surprising thing about X-Men Dark Phoenix is how unceremonious the whole thing feels. Putting aside the film itself, we have had a franchise still sticking to the same continuity to varying degrees with a rotating cast of actors for 20 years, which is now coming to an end, and no one really seems to care about it. Part of it could have been that the last X-Men movie, X-Men Apocalypse, was pretty mediocre and might have left a bad taste in audiences' mouths, but there's also the offshoot Deadpool franchise, which is doing its own thing, and Logan also seemed to give the franchise a degree of finality, of which Dark Phoenix sets to awkwardly undercut. Basically, if Logan was the well-deserved encore and standing ovation of a theatre production, Dark Phoenix is an awkward, underqualified usher stepping on stage to let the audience know where the exits are. The problem is that considering the awkward and disjointed nature of the franchise's continuity, adapting the Dark Phoenix saga, originally written up by Chris Claremont and John Byrne in the 70s and 80s, requires investment in characters like mutants Jean Grey and Cyclops, but we only met these versions one movie ago and the Phoenix powers here seem to contradict the ending of that movie. What people keep forgetting about the Dark Phoenix saga is all the history that came before it, including Jean Grey becoming the Phoenix before turning dark. It's called a saga for a reason, folks. It's a years-long story. And that's why, despite its faults, X-Men The Last Stand did this version of the story significantly better, because while it fumbled the execution, there was a sense of connection and finality because it was capping off a trilogy.
Would have killed the professor if he'd given me the chance.
Charles Xavier did more for mutants than you'll ever know. My single greatest regret is that he had to die for our dream to live.
Dark Phoenix feels like it's been fumbled into existence and doesn't even have the ambition to try and be about anything, with an ending that feels so tacked on and hurried that the whole endeavour feels like a big waste of time. In fact, the only time the movie felt anything close to alive was when James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender shared the screen, because the Xavier-Magneto dynamic is so inherently compelling, even if Dark Phoenix doesn't have anything for them to really do. The whole thing just feels so perfunctory. We're following characters who we barely know, interacting with actors who feel checked out at this point, retelling a story that was, believe it or not, done better previously, leading to a climax that doesn't amount to anything. It's not a terrible movie. Sophie Turner and James McAvoy do reliably solid work, but their arcs feel really confused, especially with Charles Xavier having an arc about apparently being fame-hungry and using the X-Men for his own agenda, which hasn't been remotely earned. Characters like Nightcrawler, Cyclops and Storm are performed well, but despite scenes which read like they should be big character-defining moments, haven't been adequately built up to, and the villains are just an absolutely nothing presence, with Jessica Chastain being completely wasted as an additional villain in the Dark Phoenix saga, which feels like such a massive misunderstanding of the actual Dark Phoenix saga. Simon Kinberg, a longtime producer, makes his directorial debut here, and I actually think he did a pretty good job. I'd like to see him direct a mid-budget drama because I like his down-to-earth filming style when it comes to conversations, and he gets better performances out of the cast than the script demands. Though the film has a $200 million budget and it looks half of that, so the budget is just not up on screen. I did like the climactic train action set piece though, mainly because we get to see Magneto employ his magnetic powers with traditional hand-to-hand combat, and it's really awesome to watch. Magneto is pretty cool here. It's just a shame it feels like the character is only here out of obligation. There's some decent ideas here, but they just feel like they belong in a different franchise, or maybe Fox and Disney should just bite the bullet and make the X-Men a high-budget TV series for the next foray into live action. Also, random note, Quicksilver has like nothing to do in this film. It feels strange that such a fan-favourite character, who has had entire set pieces devoted to him for the past few films, barely registers as a footnote here. X-Men Dark Phoenix is not the worst movie in this franchise, but it does feel like the most tired. A franchise sputtering out, wasting good talent and a good story. The film doesn't even have the original music or the iconic opening titles. It just feels like such a tacked-on ending and an epilogue that doesn't amount to anything. It's disappointing to see this first-class era of the franchise so quickly devolve after Days of Future Past, but no matter what your thoughts on this 20-year-old franchise are, I think we can all agree that it deserved a better conclusion than this. I give X-Men Dark Phoenix 1.5 stars out of 5. So, I didn't expect this review to be so short, so let's cap off this video with my personal rankings of all of the X-Men adjacent films from the past 20 years, from worst to best. X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men Dark Phoenix, X-Men Apocalypse, X-Men 3 The Last Stand, The Wolverine, X-Men, Deadpool 2, Deadpool, X2 X-Men United, X-Men First Class, Logan, and X-Men Days of Future Past. As for New Mutants, you know, I don't even think that's going to get a theatrical release anymore. I'll believe it when I see it.
We want to believe people are something that they are not. By the time we realize who they are, it's too late.
Trilbee.